Hello everyone, I'm Arjumand Khurshid, the teacher for the day. As you are aware that in the previous session, we discussed about the colonial administration. Before going for today's session and today's topic, let's have a quick look briefly at what we discussed in the last session. Children, we discussed about the consolidation of the British Empire, where the British initiated two acts in India, that is the Regulating Act in 1773 and the Pitt's India Act in 1784. After the passage of these two acts, we see a sort of the involvement of the British Parliament in the affairs of India. Then Charter Acts were passed with a gap of 20 years. 3 Charter Acts were passed, 1813, 1833 and 1853. Again, these Charter Acts, the main motive of these acts was to curb the powers and authorities of the East India Company. After the passage of these Charter Acts, finally the English could focus on the administration of their colony, that is India. How they focused on this vast empire, which was going to be a very big empire in 19th century in the Asia. Focusing on such a vast empire was the main motive of the British Parliament. How they focused? First and the foremost thing was they focused on the administration of India. For the smooth functioning of administration, they formed the administration into 4 main pillars, that is civil service, army, police and judiciary. Now we'll discuss these 4 agencies one by one. So dear children, let's focus on our today's topic, that is administration of the British. Well, you very well know that in the 19th century, the British Empire in India was becoming one of the greatest empires in Asia. So in order to consolidate, in order to expand it further, in order to safeguard and protect the empire in India, they placed their administration into 4 agencies like civil service, army, police and judiciary. We'll discuss about them one by one. Coming to the first subhead, that is Indian Civil Service. It was Lord Cornwallis who started, we can say founded the civil services in India in 1793. Children, do you know Dr. Satyendra Tagore, that is the elder brother of Rabindranath Tagore, he was the first Indian civil servant. He was the first Indian to qualify the Indian Civil Services examination. And before Indians could be recruited in the civil services of their nation, it were only the English people who were nominated by the board of directors who could become the civil servants in India. No Indian was allowed to become a civil servant or qualify the exams or sit for the exams to work in the administration of their nation. We can say that this was injustice to the Indians because being their nation, Indians had no role in the administration of their own country. And it was the Charter Act of 1853 which started the system of open examination for civil services. But Indians were, of course, they could sit for the exams, but one thing was there, they were given the subordinate positions. They could not move farther than a subedar. And of course, there were no avenues for promotion. And of course, there was a wide variety of discrimination between the Indians and the British counterparts. The civil services was known as the steel frame for India. And in order to check corruption. As you are aware, in the previous session, we discussed about the corruption by company officials. So, in order to check corruption in the officials of the company, Lord Cornwallis, he arranged for the handsome salaries of its officials. And another thing which he did in order to check his officials, in order to be vigilant over his officials, that is, he stopped acceptance of presents by the company officials. And the civil services, of course, promotions were based on seniority, but as I earlier also said, that for Indians there was no promotion. For Indians there was discrimination in salary. For Indians there was discrimination in the time of work. In order to educate the British civil servants in the customs, language and culture of India, 2 colleges were set up, one in Haileybury, England, that is the East India College, and another in Calcutta in 1800, which was known as Fort William College, where the new recruits of the Indian civil service, that is particularly and obviously the English persons, they were taught the language, the customs and the culture of India. So coming to the second pillar of the British administration, that is army. Well, in order to safeguard and protect their empire in India, their colony, which had grown to be one of Asia's biggest colony, they needed to safeguard it by an army. And it was the year 1856. If you remember the last session, when I said that by the year 1856, the empire in India was consolidated by the British. So same year, we see that the recruits, Indian recruits in the British army had increased to 2 lakh. But there was a difference in the British army, that is those recruits which were Indians by origin but worked with the British army, or we can say British rulers, and those of the native rulers. See, in the native rulers, the army of the native rulers, there was a sense of pride because they worked for their nation, as compared to that army which worked for the British rulers. No doubt they were given handsome salaries. No doubt they were trained in the latest equipments, but still there was a sense of fear in them. But as compared to the Indian army under the native rulers, they had a sense of pride because they worked for their nation. They worked for their native rulers. Again, here we see that the Indians could not go far beyond than 300 rupees per month salary. And of course, no avenues for promotion. Here also discrimination. We can see a wide range of discrimination between the Indian soldiers and that of the British soldiers. Both were Indians. Okay, one worked with the native rulers and another with the British rulers. Now, coming to the third pillar, that is police. In order to maintain law and order in the empire, in order to maintain law and order in the newly made British Empire in India, or we can say the British colony, the British rulers felt the need of a police force. Again, here I would like to quote Lord Cornwallis, who gave a concrete shape to the police force in India. Again, here we see that because India being a vast nation, it was divided into a number of districts for smooth functioning of the administration. So districts were divided into thanas, and each thana was under the charge of a daroga. Again, we see villages and cities, they were also placed under the charge of kotwals, chowkidars, and under this police force or we can say the police, the concrete shape of the police which was given by Lord Cornwallis, for the first time the superintendent of police was started in India. This, we can say, the post of superintendent of police was founded in India by Lord Cornwallis. Then, due to this police force, number one, law and order was maintained. Number two, in order to safeguard and protect the newly created empire from the foreign rivals, this, of course, the police force helped the British rulers. And thirdly, they helped the British rulers in coming to an end or curbing the highway dacoities or the robberies. But as you might be knowing, you are aware, of course, that the police force always remained unpopular. Why? Because they had an unsympathetic attitude towards Indians. And one more thing, they harassed people. Adding on to it, one more thing, they took to corruption. That is why they remained unpopular with the Indian citizens, or we can say the Indian subjects of the British rulers. Well, coming to the last subtopic or the last pillar of the British administration, that is judiciary. As the British Empire expanded in India, they felt the need of a body which could regulate laws, which could interpret laws, which could explain the laws to the Indians. That was the coming up or the setting up of a judicial administration. When we talk about judicial administration, we mean about the setting up of courts in India. In the last session, if you remember, we discussed about in the Regulating Act of 1773, I told you that the Supreme Court was set up in Calcutta for the first time for proper dispensation of justice. When moving towards, with the passage of time, as the British rulers moved towards further expansion and consolidation of India, they set up for the first time Diwani, that is civil adalat, and Faujdari, that is a criminal adalat, where both civil and criminal cases were discussed. Then, for the first time in India, in 1793, Bengal regulation was set up. What was this Bengal regulation? Bengal regulation was where the old customs and traditions of Hindus as well as Muslims were penned down, were jotted down in the form of laws. In this system of courts, for the first time, along with the Supreme Court, the high courts were set up first in the presidencies of Bombay, Calcutta and Madras. Here we had the Chief Justice along with 3 judges. Now with the passage of time, we see a wide range of judges and headed by the Chief Justice in today's India. But at that time, there was just a Chief Justice along with 3 judges, of course and obviously, who were the Britishers, because Indians had no role in the administration. Then, as I said earlier also, a lot of discrimination was done with Indians. It was such a discrimination where the people of the country had no role to play, be it the civil service, be it the army, be it the police, or the last pillar, that is the judiciary. Time and again, discriminations continued to exist in India, which finally culminated in the first, we can say, first time where India is the revolt of 1857, which we'll discuss in the next session. So children, that's all for this session. But before I conclude, before I take your leave, I would like to sum up what we discussed today. We discussed about the administration of the British rulers in India, where we discussed about the 4 main pillars, that is civil services, army, police and judiciary. The sum up of all the four pillars is, we see discrimination, a lot of discrimination. We see only British everywhere in the administration of the country. Indians nowhere. Even if they were the subordinates. They were given lower positions. They were given lower ranks. No promotions. No handsome salaries. Nothing. Ultimately, which culminated in the first war of independence, that is in the year 1857. That's all for today. Have a very good day. Until we meet in the next session, take very good care. Thank you.